I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents.
A historic announcement from the Vatican may have huge implications for Catholics and Anglicans around the world. What is poverty? A conference in Queens is looking for answers.
There's a very small group of people who are the very wealthy, and a very large group of people who are the very poor.
And the diocese celebrates an often forgotten group, the physically and mentally disabled.
And all of it comes down to the basic hope, well-founded hope of living forever.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday. Well, today, a historic decision from the Vatican that could affect millions of people all around the world. After a split that's lasted for more than 500 years, the Holy See has announced a new structure for Anglicans to more easily enter the Catholic Church.
That's right, and it will allow Anglicans who are unhappy with the direction of their church to become Catholic, while at the same time keeping many of the traditions of their old church. We get more on today's announcement from H2O News.
The Holy See has prepared a new canonical structure for Anglican clergy and faithful who wish to enter into the Catholic Church. The announcement was made by Cardinal Levada, prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, during the Holy See's press conference on Tuesday, October 20th. In his forthcoming apostolic constitution, Benedict XVI has introduced a canonical structure that establishes personal ordinariates, which will allow former Anglicans to enter full communion with the Catholic Church while preserving elements of the distinctive Anglican spiritual and liturgical patrimony. It provides for the ordination as Catholic priests of married former Anglican clergy, though precluding the ordination of married men as bishops. The agreement was reached with the Anglican Communion, and Cardinal Levada underlined that it represents a further step in the ecumenical path traced out by Vatican Council II, which the Catholic Church is resolutely determined to follow.
And just to give you some perspective, there are more than 77 million Anglicans worldwide. And now we wanted to get some insight on today's announcement from Rome, so where better than to go rather than the top expert in the U.S.
That's right. In the U.S., the Episcopal Church is the country's arm of the Anglican Communion. And since the early 1980s, the Vatican has had in the U.S. a pastoral provision allowing Episcopal priests to become Catholic priests. Monsignor William Stetson is head of that pastoral provision, and he spoke with me earlier in the day from Texas. All right, Monsignor Stetson, thank you so much for joining us here on Currents today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for getting in touch with me.
No problem at all. Now, this is, of course, big news coming out of the Vatican today. Could you kind of break it down for us and tell us exactly what this means for Catholics and Anglicans alike?
Well, I think the best explanation was given by the Archbishops of Canterbury and Westminster in their statement to the press following the announcement from Rome, that it is the logical result of the process begun by the Second Vatican Council, and even before the Council, of a rapprochement between the Church of England and the Catholic Church. But in statements that have been made, it's also clear that in recent years, some members of the Anglican Communion have departed from more traditional Catholic practices, and that has caused some disunity there. And Rome, the Holy Father, with great generosity, has opened the door to receive into full communion groups of people. And the Archbishop of Canterbury seems to be grateful for that gesture on the part of the Holy Father. And I'm sure that there are many Anglicans, Episcopalians in the United States who will also welcome this gesture of welcome from the Holy Father.
Right. Now, of course, there has been news made, for several years now with inside the Episcopal Church here in the U.S. with the ordination of women priests, the ordination of openly gay bishops, and things like that. Of course, do you think that has a lot to do with this decision?
Well, I don't think that it has. It may have provoked the decision at this time, but I think it's been a process which goes back many decades. Certainly, the decision in the United States by the Episcopal Church in the United States to ordain women say, from the Episcopal Church in the United States, and when the Church of England did the same, there were members of the Church of England who departed. So I think it's a process that's been going on of diversity within the Church of England and the worldwide Anglican Communion, and seeing that the position of the Catholic Church, together with the Orthodox churches, it continues in continuity with practice and teaching of the past. So I wouldn't want to attribute it to any one action, although perhaps that has provoked some controversy within the Anglican Communion, and the Holy See is obviously aware of that of that reaction.
Right. Okay. So the timing is the issue there. Well, along those same lines, what does this mean for married Anglican clergy?
Well, you've contacted me. I've been for many years involved with the pastoral provision, which was established in 1982 in the United States, and I've been involved in that time. And during that time, we've ordained about 90 married Episcopal priests, so it's nothing new.
Right.
What is new is that the Holy Father has decided to create a jurisdictional entity called ordinariates, which will then be able to establish parishes. Now, here in the state of Texas, where I live now, there are, in 3 different dioceses, parishes, good-sized parishes, that use the Anglican liturgy, which was approved by the Holy See in 1987, I believe it was. And so it just making it more institutionalized, shall we say, for the places like the United States, if that's decided upon by the bishops, and other parts of the world, and particularly perhaps in England, where they've had married priests, Episcopal married Anglican clergymen becoming Catholics, but they've not had a provision for parishes and the Anglican use liturgy.
Right. Now, how exactly does this decision by the Vatican, this announcement from the Vatican today, how exactly does it make it easier for Anglicans to become Catholic? I mean, do we really know a lot about the process of this yet?
No, I don't think we do. I think we'll have to see how it works itself out. We'll have to examine more carefully the apostolic constitution that's promised but has not yet been issued or promulgated, and to see how that is supposed to work.
Okay, well, as we wrap up here, Monsignor, could you just give maybe a quick summary of the significance, especially historically speaking, of this announcement today?
Well, I think that in many ways it is the result of great hopes and I'm sure prayers from people like Cardinal Newman, Venerable Newman, soon to be Blessed John Henry Newman, Leo XIII, who sought a greater union with the return into the Catholic fold. This is a historic moment for the Catholic Church, creating jurisdictional entities that, or making possible jurisdictional entities that would welcome Episcopal bishops, priests, and lay faithful and parishes into full communion with the Catholic Church.
Okay, well, Monsignor Stetson speaking to us today over the phone from Texas. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Monsignor William Stetson there, Director of the Pastoral Provision. And we'll have much more on today's announcement from the Vatican, including reaction from across the pond in England and right here in the U.S.
We have all that and the rest of the day's headlines when Currents returns. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up a bit later in the show, we'll look at the spiritual strength of the physically and mentally disabled.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines, beginning with reactions from both sides of the Atlantic on the Vatican's announcement about the Anglican Church. The Anglican Archbishop of Canterbury and the Catholic Archbishop of Westminster released a joint statement. They said the announcement brings to end a period of uncertainty for groups who have been hoping for unity with the Catholic Church. From the U.S., Father George Rutler, pastor of Church of Our Savior in Manhattan and a former Episcopal priest, called the announcement a dramatic put-down of liberal Anglicanism and a total repudiation of the ordination of women, homosexual marriage, and the general neglect of the doctrine in Anglicanism. We have much more about today's announcement on our blog as well. You can just head over to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave in the right-hand part of the screen. And meantime, in South Carolina, the Episcopal Diocese there says it will consider resolutions to distance itself from the larger Episcopal Church. The diocese is opposed to its church's stance on gay marriage and the ordination of gay clergy.
A new report finds marriage in the U.S. is suffering, but there is a silver lining to that cloud. The Marriage Index was released by the New York-based Institute for American Values and the National Center on African American Marriages and Parenting. The report finds the number of adults who are married has declined by more than 20% since 1970, and the number of people who say they are very happy in their marriages is also down. Researchers say, though, there are some encouraging signs, like the increase in intact first marriages now compared with the year 2000. Well, the hallways of some 3,000 schools worldwide were a bit quieter today. It was the Pro-Life Day of Silent Solidarity. Pro-life students were encouraged to remain silent in protest of abortion, in addition to wearing red armbands or red tape across their mouths and distributing educational materials. Organizers say last year at least 59 girls canceled their scheduled abortions because of the event. It comes, of course, during Respect Life Month, which continues through October 31st. In other news from the Vatican now, the Synod of African Bishops continues, and among the issues being discussed is coexistence with people of other faiths. We get more on that now from H2O News.
The Church in Africa brings a Christian presence to the north of the continent as well. The Archbishop of Rabat in Morocco, pastor of a community with approximately 25,000 people, underlines the Church's significance in a country where more than 98% of the population is Muslim.
To be a member of the Church is to be a witness of someone who you choose to follow, a witness of the love that was given to all men and that welcomes every life, whoever he or she may be, in all cultures and all religions. Our primary role is to be able to express with our lives that there is a God who loves all men.
In a country where proselytism is forbidden, this determination to be witnesses is embraced by the traditional Christian communities. However, it does create difficulties in the relationship with evangelical communities.
We cannot come together because we do not entirely have the same views. For them, what is needed is baptism, whereas what we try to do is to live out our faith. And so, I would say that the difficulty lies in the fact that for the common Muslim, Christians, whether Protestant, Orthodox, Baptist, Evangelical, or Catholic, are all the same.
Despite this reality, the Catholic Church enjoys a rather favorable status in Morocco. The civil authorities grant complete freedom to the Church's charitable institutions. This allows both Archbishop Landel, who is also the president of the Regional Episcopal Conference in North Africa, and the local Caritas to help immigrants in the diocese. Nevertheless, he is strongly committed in both Europe and Africa to finding a solution to these immigration problems.
Our logic is, how can we motivate all those who leave their homes to stay? And therefore, what can we do to create awareness about all that is going on, and to help these people develop and grow, and to keep from despairing?
Well, the African Synod continues through the weekend.
And stay tuned, there's much more Current Street ahead.
Coming up, from the Vatican to Queens, experts gather to address the needs of the poor.
We have a very wealthy population and a very poor population.
One of the major themes of the Africa Synod of Bishops at the Vatican is poverty. Africa is the poorest continent, but they are also looking for answers right here in the Brooklyn Diocese.
Indeed they are. Yesterday at St. John's University in Queens, as a matter of fact, experts from near and far gathered to discuss the issue. And as we found out when we sent our cameras there, there's still a long way to go in addressing the needs of the poor.
When you're pursuing wealth just to get wealthy, that is clearly a sin. It's idolatry. But if you're pursuing wealth so that you can do good things with that wealth, because wealth is necessary for us to do anything. I have to have money for me to give to a charity to help them out. Then that's not a sin at all. That's perfectly normal. Thomas Aquinas tells us that it's based on what your station is in life, and that will be different for every person. But there's a minimum floor, which is sufficiency. Everyone should have sufficiency. And there's a maximum floor when it's beyond what you need, and it becomes a distraction, or it becomes an end in and of itself. Well, it goes against what is a sort of an exaggerated version of the capitalist ideas in society.
We have found a much higher poverty line for families in New York City by thousands of dollars to meet basic housing, nutritional requirements. We have found that there's more poverty among elderly households because of the high medical expenses they still pay out of pocket. We found that some social programs actually do quite a bit to ameliorate child poverty. Some nutritional programs, the Earned Income Tax Credit are important. And we now have a way of seeing who's in poverty and how to measure the effects of our programs.
New York City, these are the people who are talking about, they are comparing their income, what people are making in the year, and they have their homes. They are talking about how to reform their health care. They're talking about how their children is growing in education and degrees. But in Africa, they're talking about people that hardly eat, people that hardly have $1 a day, people that are chronically hungry, they have no hope of the next meal, people that have no health, not talk of reform, people that have no home, that live in the garbage bins, in the garbage dump. So I don't know how we can compare two of them. It is incomparable.
I think what we look at, and one of the basic theses that we began with as we started planning this conference, is that globalization has not brought everybody into the same level. Globalization has actually created a larger divide. We have a very wealthy population and a very poor population. There's a very small group of people who are the very wealthy, and a very large group of people who are the very poor. That divide is actually growing. The fiscal crisis has just exacerbated that particular divide. So we looked at those two extremes and saying, what can we do about that? Can the world support all its people? And when you look at the numbers, the world can support. We have enough resources to support all of the countries and all of the people of this world. So enough shared is what is the goal we all are seeking.
And how easy is that to do? You know, a lot of times, as the gentleman was saying in the beginning of the piece, people get wealthy just to be wealthy and, you know, spend a lot of money and have nice cars and nice things. But if you get rich, or if you make money, to do good with that money.
Also, I think that we here in America, it's a very weird country because you have like huge obesity rates, and yet you still have poverty here. But you know, in a place like Africa, then you're talking about people with no food whatsoever. Right. People here have the luxury to have obesity. It's so backwards.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, and it's the next time I'm, you know, scarfing down my McDonald's or my slice of pizza, I need to think about that. And I do. It does cross my mind, especially when you see someone who is less fortunate.
Right, for sure. There are plenty of them in Africa and beyond. Right. Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, disabled churchgoers are recognized at a special celebration.
It's very important that people who have illness or disability are out in the public, with the public, and speaking with people and doing things.
Well, finally tonight, as we continue our coverage of Respect Life Month, we want to take a look at an often forgotten part of the pro-life movement, the physically and mentally disabled.
A recent study out of Cornell shows that with more detailed ultrasounds, more people are choosing to abort babies with severe disabilities. That was not the case, though, for the families attending a special celebration in downtown Brooklyn this past weekend.
The diocese held a special mass for the disabled at St. James Cathedral. We sent our cameras there. Take a look.
To be a leader, you provide service, and that is the true essence of what services and doing God's will. Remember at Holy Thursday service, it was Christ who went down and washed the disciples' feet, and he said that I am here to serve you. When I first started, the deaf people were not participants. They would just observe and watch the interpreter. I began my work interpreting Mass in 1994, and it was during Bishop Daley's time when he had asked that St. James and one of the church in Brooklyn, St. Mary Mother of Jesus, have sign language interpreters so that deaf people could travel to either one end of Brooklyn to participate in Mass. So there are actually only 2 churches in Brooklyn that have sign language services, and one in Queens that I know of, and one in Staten Island.
Our people have to know the beauty and the identification, really, with the Lord Jesus Christ and his mystery of salvation, which is his death on the cross and his resurrection, giving everybody a hope, a well-founded hope for life everlasting. And so that's why we're in this whole, what we call apostolate, you know, to teach the faithful about dying and rising of the Lord, in imitation of the Lord. So we have a whole bunch of people out here today in the church who have difficulties of one sort or another, physical, mental, what have you. And they come, and we gather them together to help them pray together for themselves.
And they really enjoy it. I mean, if you could see some of the songs, I work on the translation according to the concept of the song and see if they get it. And when they appreciate a song, then they pick up the musicality. They're given the opportunity to participate, and they're coming with their own little talents. And they know, they're beginning to understand what it's all about in being in church.
Well, it's important because, first of all, I think we get to see how lucky we are that there are some people that are in an awful lot worse condition than we are, and we also come to get and share ideas. It's very important that people who have illness or disability are out in the public, with the public, and speaking with people and doing things and not being at home by themselves.
Our priests visit the sick in the various parishes and where they live around Brooklyn. They bring them Holy Communion, but at the same time, they try to help them and do what they can.
I would love to see ministers. We have that at St. Mary Mother of Jesus, Eucharistic ministers. I think now we're beginning to install ramps. I think the programs or the readings should be in Braille for our friends who are blind. I think there should be so many things.
And all of it comes down to the basic hope, well-founded hope of living forever. Giving them that kind of hope that's guaranteed by the Lord Jesus Christ, who died on a cross in order to give us that well-founded hope, and they can get it through ministration of the priests and the church.
And hope is really, I mean, what it's all about, you know, because it presents such a challenge for people who are mentally and physically disabled, but so often we forget that they've always been that way, so they don't know being another way. Often that's the case anyway, and you know, I just think it's a great thing that they have a Mass like this. And yeah, some of those changes that the woman was talking about, putting the programs or the readings in Braille and building more ramps and things like that for the physically disabled, definitely needed.
Right. Well, obviously there's a lot of legislation in a lot of places so that, you know,
they
can access that. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, mandates and whatnot. But, you know, when you think about it, ultrasounds are part of modern medicine. That wasn't always the case. So a mother would always, you know, have her child.
Yeah.
And to think that, you know, perhaps technology is providing an option for people, it's a little bit weird.
It is a little strange, you know, because you think how far modern medicine's come in one respect. But then, you know, I mean, I think the purpose of it is to know what to expect and know that you might be in for something that maybe you didn't bargain for, but you can prepare mentally, physically, and all for that when the child is born.
Yeah, so that was a really nice Mass, and like you said, it's very beautiful to see them sign.
Oh yeah,
like that.
It's gorgeous to see them signing to music. I think that's
song.
Exactly. It's wonderful. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Now, tomorrow, as Respect Life Month continues, from President Bush to President Obama, what is the impact on abortions in America?
We have that and much more tomorrow on Currents. And until then, you can always watch us online. The address there is currentsny.net.
And you can also follow us on Twitter as well. Go to twitter.com/currentsny. Catch up on all our tweets. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thank you so much for watching and have a great night.